I wanted to kind of give a little preface to the story because it's set in the Aokigahara forest in Japan, which for some of you may know the name. It's the infamous suicide forest, which is not how it started. It's just what it sadly developed as. It's originally known as the Sea of Trees. It's also potentially it's considered by some people that it has demons in it. Yurai is the specific word for it, which is kind of how the story develops. It goes in that direction really. But I figured we should still touch base with the whole suicide topic because it's a heavy, it's a dark, and it's a very sensitive thing for many people, and it's completely understandable. So we're not here to pay disrespects. We're here to cover a story set in a location which sadly has a lot of sensitive things about it. I mean, we'll touch base a bit about that at the end anyway. But yeah, if you or a loved one or even somebody else that you know maybe deals with these suicidal thoughts, you should definitely seek professional help. 100%. I'll probably pop some info in the description in case you're looking for any outlets. Enjoy the story. I'm begging you, stay out of Aokigahara. Em and I were always drawn to places with dark histories, the kind most people avoid. So when we planned our trip to Japan, visiting Aokigahara, the infamous suicide forest, was a must. We joked about it over coffee, scrolling through eerie photos and half believing the ghost stories that swirled around this place. It was all fun and games then. Now, I would give anything to undo that decision. We arrived at the forest's edge early, the morning mist still clinging to the ground. The dense canopy overhead filtered the sunlight into strange patterns, making everything feel distant and unreal. The forest seemed peaceful enough at first glance, almost inviting. Emma smirked as we passed a sign in both Japanese and English warning visitors against venturing off the trails. A grim reminder that many who enter never leave. They put these signs up to scare tourists, I bet, Emma said, her tone teasing, though I could sense a slight tremor beneath her words. Yeah, maybe, I replied, my gaze drifting to the darkened path ahead. I forced a smile, trying to match her bravado, but I couldn't shake the tightness in my chest. Stick close, okay? She laughed. What? You're worried a ghost is gonna snatch me up? I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling. Just don't wander off, Emma. This place is different. We moved deeper into the forest, following the winding trails. At first it was just us, our footsteps crunching over the old volcanic rock, the occasional bird chirping overhead. But then the air began to change. It felt thicker, heavier, as if the forest was breathing. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Emma seemed less chatty, her steps slower, more deliberate. We came across a series of faint red stains on the ground, leading down further the main path. Emma stopped, her eyes narrowing. Do you see that? Probably from an animal, I said, though my voice came out smaller than I intended. Looks fresh. What if it's hurt? Oh, what if someone is hurt? Her brow furrowed. Before I could stop her, she was already moving forward, her feet crunching leaves as she ventured down the trail, following another trail to the right. Emma, wait! I called, but she kept going, ignoring my warning. That's when I saw him. A man standing motionless among the trees, just beyond where Emma was headed. His head lolled to one side, his neck bent at an impossible angle, as if it had been snapped like a twig. His eyes were sunken, dark, his skin pallid, and stretched too tight over his bones. My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed Emma's arm, yanking her back, but she barely noticed. Who is that? She whispered, as if afraid her voice might shatter him. I don't know. Let's just go, I urged, tugging her, but she wouldn't move. The man began to step forward, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait, and that's when I saw her, a woman following behind him, crawling on all fours like a spider, her limbs twisted and broken in horrifying directions. Her face was a nightmare. Her lower jaw was missing, the back of her head caved in, but her eyes were wide, almost eager. Emma, run! I shouted, panic tightening my throat. We turned and sprinted back the way we came, but the forest seemed different now. the paths twisting, closing in on us. The woman's deformed body scrambled over rocks and roots with alarming speed, moving like a crab, her limbs clicking and snapping as she closed the distance between us. Her ragged breaths filled the air with a sick, wheezing sound. "Faster, Emma!" I screamed, my legs burning with effort. Emma stumbled, nearly falling, but I grabbed her arm and pulled her up. "Go! Go!" I yelled, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. The woman was close now, her fingers, or what was left of them, scraping at the dirt, leaving a trail of blood in her wake. I could hear her laughing, a sound like broken glass grinding together. I risked a glance back and saw her face contorted in a grotesque grin, her eyes gleaming with some hideous glee. We burst into a small clearing, panting, and I dared to hope that maybe we'd lost her, that we might be safe. But the man with the broken neck appeared before us, blocking our path, his head twitching as if in silent laughter. Emma screamed as his hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with impossible strength. "Let go!" I shrieked, grabbing a branch and swinging it wildly. He didn't even flinch. His grip tightened, dragging Emma towards him. The woman with the shattered limbs was upon us now, her jawless mouth opening wide, not unlike a python preparing for a meal. She lunged at Emma's legs, her fingers digging in with a sickening crunch. "Help me!" Emma cried, terror in her eyes, as I began to pull her away back into the dark. I reached for her, but something held me back. A hand, cold and clammy, wrapped around my ankle. I kicked, struggling, and broke free, watching in horror as Emma was dragged deeper into the forest, the two figures tearing at her clothes, pulling her by her hair, her terrified screams fading into the shadows. "No!" I shouted, racing after her, but I felt the ground give way, my feet slipping over loose dirt. I crashed to my knees, pain exploding through my body. The woman with the broken limbs began crawling toward me again, her body twisting and contorting in ways that defied reason. I scrambled back, my breath coming in frantic gasps, my heart hammering in my chest. I could hear them dragging Emma, hear her cries, and then nothing. Only the sound of leaves rustling, the distant creak of branches. I don't remember how I got out. The next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance, shivering, covered in dirt and scratches. They kept asking me what happened, and where my sister was, but I couldn't form the words. All I could do was stare back at the trees. And then I saw her, Emma, standing at the edge of the forest, her body pale and gaunt. She was waving at me, a slow, lifeless motion. Her chest had a gaping hole where her heart should have been, her face blank. I lost consciousness before the ambulance doors closed, but I couldn't unsee it. Her hollow, dead eyes locked onto mine, forever calling me back into the darkness. So please, I beg of you, stay out of Aokigahara. And that was I'm Begging You, Stay Out of Aokigahara by NoGlass3279. Now, I think it's a great story, obviously barring the fact that it's talking about the suicide forest, which is a real place in Japan. It's a incredibly tragic thing, really. The fact the forest, I mean, you've got like it's just got a massive suicide rate for a forest. It's incredibly sad because that's not what it's supposed to be known for. It originally was it's a sea of trees. Is the actual like translation, because it's incredibly thick, dense woodland. It's a forest. It's awesome, and it's got like caves and everything in it. It's really, really cool. It's quite a place to apparently visit, despite its dark, story as well along with it. But it's also potentially tied in with with their folklore about demons, yurei, if you will. Really interesting. I could talk a little bit about that, but at the same time, we kind of also need to talk about other things as well. Obviously, suicide is a big dark factor in people's lives, and sadly, it's becoming it's hard. It's a hard thing for people to talk about, for people to experience. Of somebody else committing suicide is what I'm saying. Obviously, that I wouldn't know from the person doing it. It's hard to say. Obviously, I have no idea. But it's not something to take as a joke, to take lightly. If you or anybody else is dealing with any kind of suicidal tendencies or thoughts, that's not like a joke. That's not a funny thing. That's not okay. That's why there are trained professionals that you should be reaching out to, talking to, getting advice. I mean, you can obviously talk to other people as well, loved ones and people who care about you, of course. And I'm sure they will provide a level of help to the best that they can. But yet again, there's a reason that there are people trained in these sort of things, and they're the ones that we should really be trusting and relying on to assist in these sort of heavy kind of things, you know. So absolutely, I'll pop a couple of, at least one place down below in the description, maybe like a website or something in case you don't want to do a phone call. Completely understandable. You know, we'll see if there's anything that you can reach out to in case you yourself or you know anybody else who might have those thoughts and tendencies, just to kind of help push them in a better direction, really. You know, the whole point is support. It's not forcing, it's support. Sadly, after we moved on from that topic, because we have to, inevitably we're here to talk about the story. I just wanted to make sure we preface that important stuff. Damn it, I've clicked away. I'm just hurting myself now. I look like an absolute buffoon. Here we go. So besides the fact the forest is, so in this story they're talking about there's like these demonic entities. It's quite clear based on the Spider Woman appearance and the big man and things like that. They're clearly some kind of demons or demonic spirits, vengeful spirits, whatever. You know, even yokai, hard to say. But I know the stories based in the Aokigahara forest are talking about yurai specifically, so they are demons really instead of just spirits. And so it's quite clear that there's a playful element of that in this story, which I think is really good. I like the fact that we're pushing away from the other sides of the forest. We're talking about the actual more like folklore mythological side, which is great. It's not a long story. It's not a bad story. It's got a lot of it's got a fair little bit of stuff going on. Good little bit of detail, which kind of really digs you in and gets you a little bit excited, and not excited in a fun way, but excited in like a, oh my god kind of a way. Yeah, I sadly don't have a massive amount to say about it, besides the fact of obviously the dark tendencies around the setting and things. It's yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's pretty freaky. It makes me think of things like the grunge, for example. Maybe Ringu, something like that. But I think the grunge is a little bit closer to it when it comes to like, even though I don't think that's Japan. Is it Japan? I feel like an absolute doofus. I should have looked that up before I mentioned it. Because, yeah, no, it might be. Oh, God, I feel so stupid. We'll move on past my stupidity. But I'm going to leave it in because, you know, fuck me. I'm happy to make a fool of myself. It's, yeah, no, it's not a bad little story. I was if anything, I just thought a story in this kind of a setting, it'd be, for the very least, interesting to kind of look into it a little bit more and understand a bit more about the history of the place and stuff. And I thought that was quite interesting. It's, yeah, if anything, it really reminds you like how dangerous the place is, how horrifying it can be if these demons are actually there. But then again, it also makes you wonder how many demons are there, right? Because I don't know much about the demon aspects, the yurai, if anything. I know yokai, they don't tend to do a whole lot with each other. They're kind of like more individual cases. But yurai, the fact there are two distinct ones here, maybe I need to look into yurai a little bit more. Maybe there are specific demons in that realm that I need to perhaps understand and learn a little bit more about. It's kind of like how in other paranormal sects and things, where we have definitions of specific kind of entities and stuff like that. And then even in the world of demonology, there are specific demons, and there's also like houses of demons. I think it goes pretty complex, obviously, besides the big one himself, which we're not going to say the name in case I curse this video or something. Would that happen? I don't really know. But I'm happy not to fuck around and find out, you know. I don't want to put anybody else at risk, including myself. So, it's been it's interesting. Interesting to learn little bits about this kind of stuff, really, and to, yeah, kind of share a little bit of that with you. So, I've been Nate at Night. I've had an interesting time, if I'm honest with you. But I sure hope you've learned something, too. I sure hope we come away from this feeling a little bit more educated about these kind of matters. And, yeah, don't fuck around in forests. It's a pretty big piece of advice right there. Especially at night. Really stupid idea. Never know what's out there. Wildlife, other people, spider women. You just don't fucking know. Be careful out there, kids. Take care. Thank you so much to my YouTube members and Patreon members for all the love and support. thanks to people like you that we can keep growing.